Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Burkus. Other side of the screen, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Chicago Bears, kind of played a Thursday night football game, and they lost 6-3. Sounds like a baseball score. And this season is mercifully almost over. How'd you take the game?
I feel I've watched that exact same game several times in my time as a Bears fan. Low scoring, taffy pull, just excruciatingly boring. It was terrible. Everything about that game was just boring and it's crap and nothing worked out. There were like some missed opportunities, stupid penalties. It ran everything, all the usual crap that we see as Bears fans. It was happening right there. And that was it. 6-3. And then, of course, Caleb throws the pick to end it, which, the one slight silver lining we had as Bears fans was, hey, he's got a neat shot at a record here. But now that's over because, that's the Bears.
Desperation throw on the last play of the game.
Yeah.
And it ruins it. So that was fun. We don't normally do the immediate post game. This is our one and only time that we're doing this year, and we're gonna stumble through it because we're used to our categories. So we'll go through our categories. We may or may not have. We didn't have the time. Obviously, we didn't go back and rewatch this thing. We didn't have the time to write down perfect answers, and our answers may have changed if we would have watched this game again. Here's the thing, though, Lester. Here's what's exciting: is that I'm not rewatching this game.
No.
Because I don't have to, because I don't have to prepare for this show on Monday. And so that's a good thing. That is a gift. We can both celebrate that right
now. I was so excited. I always take time off on the holidays. So I'm like, I'm off. I was off today. I'm off tomorrow. I'm off next Monday. I'm like, okay. And look, all day I'm like sitting here. I don't really want to watch the Bears tonight. I can't remember the last time I actually thought to myself, I'd rather not have to watch this game. I watch them. I always watch them. I've watched every game just because, I don't know, I guess I have mental problems, but I watch them regardless. But I did not have the urge. I had zero excitement. I just was not looking forward to this at all because I expected another loss and I expected another primetime embarrassment. And that's what it was. I mean, the announced we're clowning the Bears, the halftime show we're clowning the Bears, the pregame show we're clowning the Bears. Post game, I didn't get a chance to watch much of it. I was kind of prepping. I was tweaking Jacob's article, throwing our embed in there, so I didn't have too much time or afterward. But it was on in the background, and the crowd that was there in attendance for the post game were chanting "Sell the team."
You think George will listen to him?
George would probably hire a consultant.
He's just a fan.
Yeah, he'll have a consultant come in and tell him how he should react to the crowd chanting "Sell the team." It's
now, since George is just a fan and he's a good fan, does his fandom make him want to yell at ownership to sell the team?
Oh man, that's mind bender there, man.
Oof, yeah, there's a movie there. So it's 10:30 at night Central Time, and I'm not used to being up this late. I have a cup of coffee. I did pour a little rum in it.
Nice,
because I'm not working tomorrow either.
Okay,
so let's get into this thing. Let's dig in. Let's dig into another train wreck. We always start in the trenches. Today's no different. We're going to start in the trenches. I think there's a couple names here, Lester, and I have 3 written down, and I'd like you to pick one.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you going to name them off for me?
I'm going to name them off.
Okay.
I'm going to say Byron Cowart.
Okay.
I'm going to say Darrell Taylor and his revenge game, and I'm going to say Jacob Martin. Those are your 3 candidates. I'm not taking anybody from this offensive line.
No.
Without a rewatch, I can't say that anybody played well because there was way too much pressure tonight. And give it up for, defensive mastermind McDonald over there for Seattle. He is a good defensive coordinator.
He is.
But that was crazy. That was an insane amount of pressure. So nobody from the offensive line is going to get any flowers tonight. We're going to go with the defensive line, who I thought at least kept them in the game. They did do some things. So those are your 3 options. Who you like?
I think Taylor flashed a bit early. Like I said, it was a revenge game for him, right? I mean, players seem to get up to play their former teams, and I thought Taylor had a pretty good game early, running around quite a bit. He did have the sack. I think he had, I'm looking at it now, 4 tackles. So he was active early. He had the forced fumble. If anyone stood out, it has to be Taylor. this week. How about you?
I mean, I love the revenge game
Yeah.
stuff, right? I mean, I know it's silly, and I think a lot of times it's overblown, and it's really funny when a guy is playing for his fourth team, is playing against his third team, and people are like revenge game, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, but he was traded, right? And so I think that there's something a little bit additional when you're actually traded, not just like you chose to go play for a different team, or hey, this team over here offered me more money, so that's why I play for them now, or it's not necessarily the same feelings that are involved as they once were, but you get traded from a team and you get a chance to play that team. I think there's something there. So yeah, he was my pick. I thought it was worth at least mentioning Cowher because he got a sack, and Jacob Barton had a batted ball, and he's just a guy that's exceeded my expectations this year. So I think it's worth mentioning that guy. But yeah, to me, it goes to Taylor.
Plus, Jacob Markham, he pulled out the Kevin Mutombo, the no after he made that swat there. It was kind of nice to see him do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's a classic.
That's a classic.
Everybody gets an extra point if they're able to pull that one off. But all right, well, let's leave it there because what are you going to do? I did find a tweet. I don't know if we want to just maybe focus in on this one because I think it leads us into Caleb's corner as well. But this is from our buddy Matt Bowen. He's at Matt Bowen 41 on Twitter. He says, Caleb Williams tonight, flashes of high level playmaking ability plus arm talent, natural creator, running, retreating into pressure, timing issues in pocket, pass game lacked a sense of rhythm tonight. So I thought that was a pretty good summary of what, this is a guy who played in the NFL for, quite a number of years. He was a defensive back. This is a guy who knows football. He can evaluate quarterbacks pretty well. And I think that he did a pretty good job of summarizing what he saw from the Bears offense from Caleb Williams specifically. And it's tough because you look at the stats. We'll get into the stats here in a second, but you look at the stats and they're pretty woeful, but there's so many good things that happen and then so much frustrating things that are happening on this tape too, that you're like, I just don't know how to tease this apart, particularly in real time.
Zach Pearson, our guy, he had a tweet. I didn't have a chance to pull it up, but he had a tweet where he mentioned that, Caleb has to get the ball out quicker, but the O-line also was pretty bad tonight. Both can be true. And I think that's kind of what happened here. And I mentioned, I was kind of watching the post game a little bit. I was doing the article prep, and they were talking about the sacks, right? And there was a lot of sacks, obviously. And they were talking about it. And of course, the narrative on set was Caleb's got to get the ball out. He's got to get the ball out faster. He's holding on to the ball too much. So they're starting to show the sack replays, right? And as they're showing them, I think it was Richard Sherman. He's starting to count. 1,000. Oh, that's already sack. They show the next one. 1 second, 2 second. Oh, it's already a sack. It's like they're trying to build this narrative that he's holding the ball too long. And as they're showing the sacks, Caleb's pressured less than 2 seconds, which, look, sometimes there's a hot. Sometimes he has to get the ball out if he knows the guy's coming. There was a play early in the first half where there was a hot route, or there was a free blitzer, I should say, and there was no hot route built in again. Something that we've seen happen time and time again this season. And look, like you said, it's a good defensive coordinator over there, a good defensive play caller. They schemed it up to where he had a free blitzer because how they showed the look, they showed pressure to the Bears' right, which meant that they had to slide protection that way. They brought a blitzer next to Borum plus an edge rusher next to Borum. There was no way to block it, but that's a hot. Caleb read it, but again, he had nowhere to go. There was no one out there that was looking for the ball. He tried to do a spin move, retreat, took like a bad sack. That looks like a bad play by Caleb, but what's he supposed to do? There's nowhere to go sometimes.
I mean, you mentioned it was a smart play design. The defensive line brought an extra player against Borum. It's a 2-on-1 situation, but Borum just decides to block nobody.
He did nothing.
Yeah. Right. And so not only is it a 2-on-1, now it becomes a 2-on-0 because Borum sort of just says, well, I'll pick the middle lane.
Yeah.
And he lets someone go inside and outside. So if he takes the guy on the inside, which is, I think, generally what you would be probably coached to do in that situation, then Caleb knows that he's got this guy screaming off the edge. Maybe he can step up. Maybe he can make that guy avoid. if Borum takes the guy on the outside and pushes him out, that guy comes in, maybe he can spin out of it, right? So, two guys
You can't
rushing in, pitching, he's
can't beat
done.
2 guys
He's
covered.
done, right? But so you have smart play design. They're outmatched on that in that capacity. And then when the play happens, you have a physical mistake or a mental mistake, I guess, too, by Borum. And then they aren't able to. Caleb isn't able to avoid 2 players. But I wanted to highlight this comment by Papa Scarbs in the comments here.
Yeah.
He's saying Bears have no pressure play, haven't had one all year. So he's saying they don't have a hot. They don't have anything where they can get rid of the ball, and so they're just out there running the routes. And we talked about the route concepts and how a lot of times they're not very smart because there's a lot of the guys running in the same area. And seems to be a lot of mistakes in that way too. But there's not an easy outlet a lot of times for Caleb in these situations either. And so it's weird because we've talked about this a lot on our show, in that you started your sack watch column 11 years ago, in part because you were frustrated that all the talk was only about the offensive line and sacks. And now the narrative is totally flipped. And I don't know if you watched the Prime Vision version where the Sam Schwartzstein comes on and talks, and he was building that narrative and he was talking about that. He was putting all the sack on Caleb. And I thought, you've got Larry Borum, who came into the year, a lot of people thought he was going to get cut. They paid him the accelerator, but he was probably your OT4, right? Your second backup. I think he was kind of counted on as maybe your second swing. He's playing left tackle for you. Jake Curon, who we've watched play football this year, he's about into the bench, right?
He started the year on the practice squad. He's a practice squad guy.
Practice squad guy, not a particularly refined offensive lineman, right?
Mostly tackle in his career as well.
Trying to be kind. He's playing left guard. Coleman Shelton was signed to back up Ryan Bates at center, and he's been your steady presence at center all year. But he was your backup center. He's been been there.
Yeah,
he's been available. Right?
He's there. That's the key. Yeah.
And then you got Matt Pryor, who was he supposed to be your top swing tackle coming into the year, but he gets kicked into guard. He's played fairly well for a guy that wasn't expected to start. And then you have Darnell Wright. So you've got 4 guys that weren't expected to be part of the original plan. Now, some of that happens. You might get 1 or 2 guys that are rotating in. You might get, this guy ended up finishing the season. This guy didn't work out, whatever. 4 guys on this line tonight. Now, at no point did Sam Schwartzstein or Al Michaels or Kaylee Hartung or Kirk Herbstreit or Richard Sherman or any of these guys mention that. At no point did I hear them say that they're playing with a primarily backup offensive line like that. And so it is weird that they have decided that sacks are now Caleb's fault 100%. They are not. I don't know what the percentage is, Lester, throughout when you go through and you do your column every week. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's not 100%.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not 100% with this makeshift offensive line. So I just get a little frustrated listening to this. And I'm not trying to just, absolve Caleb of all blame here. Like that's not what I'm trying to do. He certainly has issues with the running into pressure, but scheme is going to be a big help. Whatever new offensive minded head coach that they hire comes in and changes the scheme, that's going to be big. An increase in talent in the offensive line and an increase in playing together is going to help. They did this constant shuffling in and out has been an issue for the entire Ryan Poles era.
Well, there's this attention to detail too that has been talked about quite a bit. Ryan Poles even mentioned it today on one of his pregame hits. He said something about something goes back to, to the preseason and the offseason and the training camp. Look, some of these hot routes, there's not always going to be a flat guy. That's what a lot of fans, there should be a guy in the flat. Sometimes the hot comes from the receiver recognizing that the blitz is coming, so he has to break off his routes. There was a play in the game today where Rome, it looked like he ran like a curl, like at 10 yards. And this is one of the plays where Caleb got sacked, and the blitz came from Rome's side. So you would have thought that since there was no outlet there, maybe Rome was the hot, and he should have broke it off, maybe a slant or curled it up earlier, because there was no one really covering him until he got 10 yards deep, where I think it was the safety out there. So some of the stuff, again, there's no check down there, but other times it's just they're not on the same page. The receiver is supposed to recognize that too. Pass protection is a team scheme thing where they all have to know what's going on. And if they're all uptight showing blitz as a receiver or as a tight end, whoever's out there, you have to have it in your back of your mind. Okay, if this guy comes, I'm going to break this off. Now, maybe that's not built into all their plays, but this is an NFL offense. It's sure as hell is built into quite a few.
Yeah, it's 2024. Like
Yes.
that stuff has to be there. And should Rome have broken that one off? Maybe. Is it being taught? Is it being called that way? Is it like there's a lot of assumptions that we can all make of what we think should happen, right? So I just don't know where, you really don't know where to put the blame all the time. But when you're going to get a chance to look at this all 22, and you got a longer week, and you got a long article to write, and so you're going to have to look at that, and you're going to be able to look downfield and be like, well, where is he supposed to go? What's he supposed to do here, right? And some people, well, he's got to throw it in the dirt. Well, that's grounding. So I'm not sure that that's what you want to do either. And then once you start throwing it away, and you're in difficult situations, you're either going to get the flag. Something can happen though. You can get the tip ball and you can throw an interception. So it's not always smart to just throw it out of the pocket, particularly if you're going to get flagged anyway. So
if Caleb's on the move and he's twisting and contorting his body, and you're like, oh, just chuck it out of bounds or chuck it in the dirt, the arm angle on that, when you're contorting your body, like you said, let's say he tries to chuck it and the ball is tipped, and now the ball is fluttering in the air. That's a stupid play. We talked about it last week. Sometimes the smart play is you just got to take the sack. It sucks because he takes it so deep because he's kind of scrambling around back there, but he's trying to make a play. It's going to be a sack for a 10-yard loss, or it's going to be a loss of down penalty, spot foul, same thing. There's no difference there. The only difference is you're not trying to make a ridiculous arm angle throw where it could end up being something bad.
Right. It could be even worse, right? All right, obviously already talking about Caleb. Let's go through his stats. 16 of 28, 122 yards. The Eric Kramer dream is dead. There's no way he's gonna get that now. 0 touchdowns. So held steady on that. Unfortunately, stays firm at 19, and then an interception. Last throw of the game, throws an interception. Such a bummer, right? So that interception ends the streak at 353 passes, 354, whatever. I think I tweeted out 354, but now that I think about it, it's probably 353. That's sixth all times, right behind Justin Herbert's 357, which happened earlier this year, which was one behind Brady at 358. So, just a few more, he would have moved up a little bit on this random stat that became a thing. Took 7 sacks for 46 yards lost. So that sucks for you. And then he scrambled ran the ball 5 times for 37 yards. Overall, bad. Those are bad. That's bad stats. There's no yardage there. The best throw of the game was called back by a holding penalty from the practice squad guard, Jake Kieran. Amazing throw. Might have been the throw of the year for him, and it doesn't count. And it was a soft call, in my opinion. That wasn't the most egregious hold I've ever seen in my life, but it's enough to get the flag, and it wipes away a pretty beautiful throw to Rome. Would have been a great highlight. And so you're left with, I think, a pretty empty stat line that really does exemplify a 6-3 loss.
Yeah, that was a bad stat line all around. The hold, like you said, it was a hold, but we've seen things like that, get let go in the past. We've seen, much worse stuff like that, get let go. It was the Seattle defender had a nice rip move, came under. Once you get your arm between the offensive player, now it looks like you're holding. He may not have impeded his progress, but that's how it looks to the referee. So I understand the call. It was kind of soft, but it's a hold. It is what it is. Overall, like you said, bad numbers. It's not going to be one of his better games. the dream for Eric Kramer was there. I mean, it was within striking distance. That dream is over. But that's okay. It's the new OC, the new head coach next year is going to come in, clean some of this stuff up, and implement a system, that works. And we talked about it on last week's show. In hindsight, we all thought this was the year it was going to happen. It looked like they had a lot of stuff in place, and it just didn't happen. And 10 losses in a row now. 67 sacks. I think it's just ridiculous. It's just going downhill, and there's just nothing to. There are no silver linings, right, with this game. It was just horrible.
No, the silver lining got torn off there, particularly with that last throw. I mean, you can't. I mean, do we do that here? You can't. You can't attempt the field goal, or you don't know enough to like call a play to say, let's at least get a few more yards here on second down or third down so that we can have a field goal that we feel comfortable attempting with Cairo. Because if you're saying that 57 is beyond his range, then that on 1st and 10.
Yes.
You didn't just know that on 4th and 10. You knew that on 1st and 10 and 2nd and 10 and 3rd and 10. But the passes that were called there, we're going downfield a little bit. So that's either maybe a little bit on Caleb, I think a little bit more on Thomas Brown to say at least get 5, 6, 7 yards. We want to put this into Cairo's range at a minimum, right? And did not see that. And then you have to go forward on 4th and 10, and they were gonna punt it earlier in that drive too, by the way, and then took a timeout.
And then they took a timeout. Another late game mistake here from a Bears coaching staff where it's just kind of like, I think it just runs. There's something in the water at Hallis Hall, obviously. We really do benefit from watching the game a second time so that you can kind of like replay all these things, but they're like just swimming back to me of these terrible things that happen in sequence here. So, you stepped on my number that I wrote down a little bit here, but 67 sacks that Caleb has taken. It's now the most in franchise history. I'll also say Caleb did get through this game healthy, and so he's going to make the final start of the year, I would assume, unless something crazy happens. And that will be the first time since 2009 when Jay Cutler took all the starts for Bears quarterbacks. And so that's kind of a crazy number. I mean, it's always fun to get to the end of the year to see what stats sort of pop in terms of things that are like, oh, hey, they're approaching this record, or, oh, hey, this is the best that they've done since this year. In a bad year, it's flipped, and you start to see these things that pop up that are on the negative side of the ledger. 67 sacks is the most in franchise history, and done in 16 games. So it's not like the extra game hurt him either. So broke that record within the normal 16 game schedule. Yeah, it's no fun. It's been no fun with sack watts this year. Just too much stuff to break down. And like I said earlier, it's like some of it's on Caleb, but it's not nearly as bad as what people are saying. And then there's the sack to pressure rate, the percentage number that I don't know what analytic they're pulling this from.
Basically, if you take the number of sacks and divide it by the total pressures, so it's essentially how many of the pressures results in sacks, and if it's a high number, then they're trying to pin that. Again, it's more that they're trying to pin on the quarterback. I don't know, man. Like you could turn that around pretty quick and say, okay, but here, watch this where it's instant pressure in his face because the offensive lineman basically olayed this block. That seems like something that the quarterback doesn't really have a chance to defend himself on. So again, as a former offensive lineman, I kind of love the talk shifting towards, hey, it's more than just offensive linemen. There's a lot of things that contribute to this and take the blame, but then it just got away from us, and it's just like gone too far to the other end, and people are picking that up, and it's like I feel like I'm taking the crazy pills again here. Like, what? Wait, no, not that far. Like, you still have to watch. I think so many people want to take a number and say, see,
yeah,
and it's like, no, go back and watch, and then tell me what you see. You combine both of those things. Watch the game and look at the numbers. Sorry, you were in the middle of.
No, that's my vein where I was trying to go right there. I was trying to get that number because like you said, if you're not watching the film, if you're not watching the play, and look, I don't know exactly every route concept. I don't know every blocking scheme. I don't know exactly who made the mistake. But when you're watching the game and you clearly see, like you said, immediate pressure, and sometimes, like I said, it's a missed block where it's not even a blitz, where it wasn't a free blitzer that was Caleb's fault. It was just, Jake Curran missed a guy, or Coleman Shelton just missed a guy, or he just got Braxton Jones got bowled over and the pressure's in his face so quickly. There is nothing you can do in those situations. Sometimes there's a check down there for you. There was a play today where there was a check down where it looked like he had DeAndre Swift in the flat. It looked like he had Roshan Johnson kind of out there as a blocker, and he kind of looked to go deep first. When you watch things like that, yeah, those are good instances. Okay, that's a play where he should have checked it down, but those don't happen all the time. There are several times we're just watching. It's like there's nowhere to go. There's just nothing to do. The pressure's on him so fast. You just got to take the sack, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's frustrating. And this is this was the protection schemes that Waldron originally put in. Thomas Brown had a lot to do with it as the passing game coordinator. Chris Morgan as the O-line coach has something to do with it there too. There's a lot of the blame pie, right? There's a lot of pieces of the blame pie to go around here, and Caleb gets his fair share as well.
Yeah, we should hand out some blame pie here in a minute, but hey, do you want to talk about our friends at Underdog Fantasy? Do you have that up?
Not really. Let's just skip it tonight. Really?
All right, we're gonna say friends at Underdog, go visit them. Promo code City.
Go visit those guys for sure.
Yeah. All right. Quick break. On the other side of this, we'll do everybody's favorite segment, the Three Bears. Stick with us. All right, listener. Post-game show, Three Bears. Hot bowl of porridge. Boy, rainy. It's not cold. It's nice, like for the time of year. But this is good soup weather, right? This is good porridge weather. If you're into that sort of thing, a hot bowl of porridge after a game like this would really be good. Problem is, not a lot of players deserve it. I'm going to start, and I'm going to.
You got one. I know you got one.
No, I'm going Kyler Gordon.
Okay, then mine is different, so that's good.
So to me, Kyler continues to flash. I mean, he had the great play, the recovering the fumble. Really could have been the only, that would have been a total Bears, like historical Bears game, right? If he wouldn't have gone down on a knee to get that ball, if he would have stayed up, grabbed the ball and ran it in for a touchdown, because the Seahawks didn't, they thought that play was dead. And that was clearly out, but he picked up the ball. If they wouldn't have been touchdown or ruled down by contact, he would have got a touchdown. But he's just flying around the field. His athleticism is really, it's really impressive to me. He had a pass breakup, and he just continues to kind of just flash all over the field. And I really like watching players like that. It's a lot of fun, where you can see him in coverage, you can see him coming off the edge, you can see him making a tackle for loss. You can, they're just everywhere, and you need players like that. And I continue to be impressed by him, even in a down year for the team. I think he flashes.
That was a nice play. It's like I had it locked and loaded as they were that Gordon ran that back, and right, there was like a lot of confusion going on. He scored a touchdown. He just kind of, he just did it out of habit, right? He wasn't really running full speed. So, and then the ref comes on and said the play was not blown dead. So I was ready. Like, that's never happened that I can recall. I mean, how often has that? We've seen that happen against the Bears quite a bit.
The other way.
We've never seen that happen for the Bears. So I was ready to fire that off on a tweet or on a Blue Sky. I was locked and loaded, and I'm waiting because I'm like, nope, they ain't going to stand. Something will happen, and they're going to change their mind again. And they did, of course. But yeah, that's Kyler Gordon. No heads up play. Ball was loose. And it still wasn't clear on the replay. I mean, was his foot touching a guy? I mean, is that what they were saying happened? I really couldn't tell on the initial watch.
I mean, I think that he went down to the ground, his knees were touching the ground, and then he's ripping the ball out. And so I think just the contact of the player that's getting tackled.
Okay.
right, is contacting Gordon,
He's
and so
probably
they're counting that as down. So whatever. Did you had another guy? Who'd you want to talk
I
about?
did have a guy. I kind of looked through the stat sheet. Again, it's hard to tell without the rewatch, but I saw this guy, and it's one of our guys, Torrey Taylor, 7 punts. He had a 46.7 yard average, and his net also 46.7 yards. So this hot bowl is going to be for Torrey and the punt coverage units that did a great job getting down there and covering the kicks. And he had 5 of those inside the 20. I'm not sure where he's at as far as the Bears all-time inside the 20 mark, but I think he's higher than Gill was last year. So I'm going to be curious to kind of look back and see where Torrey Taylor ranks all time as far as Bears pinning it inside the 20. I know that's a fairly newer stat. I'm not sure how far back that goes, but I'm just curious to see where he's going to end up when his season's all said and done.
He's had a lot of opportunity.
He has 70 some odd punts he had this year, I think they said in the broadcast.
So I had him written down as an option for just right.
Because we expect that out of the guy.
Because we do expect that out of him. And so the only thing I had written down, the 5 inside the 20 and 7 punts, only 2 were returned. And so I think he did a good job of getting like the proper amount of air to distance on it. So forcing that fair catch. And then the 2 that were returned, one was for like, one was like -1 yard, and one was positive 1 yard. So a net of 0 yard return yards. And that does wonders for your net, right? Like, I mean, when you can force fair catches and make sure that you get minimal returns, that really helps. And I think for a big portion of this season, you've seen some returners have some success, right? Because he does have a big leg and he can get out in front of it. Now that's part on the gunner for not winning downfield. And then that's part on him maybe putting a little bit too much distance on it and allowing a return. And so it was a little more controlled. I would also think the weather might have had something to do with that. They may have been a little bit more keen to call for a fair catch in kind of rainy conditions. But still, it's not like they were short. Like he was putting them, I think, where he wanted it to. So I think a good punting night. And I know it's sad that we have to talk about punting. I know a lot of people hate punters, but he's having a pretty good year. Like, he's not the best punter in the league, but he's having a pretty good year. And I think he's just showing that trajectory of doing well. So
I feel we do have to shout out. I mentioned the special teams unit, Tyler Scott on that one tackle. Again, he's been a guy that's been inactive much of the year. He finally got his first catch of the season a couple of weeks ago, and here he is making a nice special teams tackle. So maybe there's something out of this 4th round draft pick that Ryan Poles made here that he may turn into something after all. Maybe
a special teamer.
Maybe.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Turn it around. Cold Bowl. I mean, you can go anywhere you want. I wanted to make sure that Jake Curran got a Cold Bowl, and I know that's maybe not fair to him because, like you said, he started the year as a practice squad player. This wasn't someone who the Bears were probably counting on taking legitimate reps this year, and here he is starting a game. But even inside of that, the holding penalty is really rough. Would have been the only touchdown of the game, right? And that was it's such a nice highlight. So it just kills me. I had to make sure we called that out. And then the 4th and inches false start that was on him.
Brutal.
That's pretty brutal. I know the Bears picked it up, but still, that's such a, you can't do that. You can't do that as an offensive lineman. There's no excuse for you. The snap count. There's no excuse for you to have a pre-snap penalty like that. Line up correctly and don't have a false start. That's the bare minimum that you have to have. So I wanted to make sure we had that. Do you have anybody else?
I'm going to go running back Roschon Johnson.
Okay.
I expected more out of him this year. I know he was kind of given the goal line role there a little bit there, the short yardage role, but coming out of Texas, there was some hype around this pick. I just expected more this season. The Bears, they moved Khalil Herbert, right? He's a guy that was a pretty good runner because Rojo is supposed to be a better all-around football player. I haven't seen it. I mean, I probably will go back and watch a little bit of this film, just kind of see what's going on back there. But of course, I'm gonna have to break down the sacks off to watch those at least. But even as a pass blocker, blitz pickup, I mean, he's fine, but it's nothing like extraordinary, where it's like, yeah, this guy definitely has to be on the field. This is what he's here for. But as a runner, I know a lot of fans clown DeAndre Swift's vision, which is pretty bad. He likes to kind of take everything outside. But what's Roshan Johnson doing for you? You know, I mean, he hasn't really done much this whole season. Yeah, the injuries were in there, but this game he had 4 rushes, he had 5 yards. I think he had his long was 3 yards, which he did make a first down there. But other than that, you know, it's what does he bring this offense? Where I think next year running back Swift is here regardless, but I think next year I would not be surprised the Bears spend a draft pick on a running back.
Yeah, take the Boise State kid.
I mean, look, the Lions did it. You know, when let's say Ben Johnson is the next Bears head coach, he's going to want a 2-headed monster back there. He's going to want a couple guys probably. And if it's the kid from Boise State, Genetti, I mean, if he's the guy, I mean, it's going to be a lot to get some, you know, running backs don't matter crowd on board. But I mean, running backs kind of still matter. I mean, we've seen a resurgence this year. So I as a former O lineman, I kind of enjoy seeing that the running backs kind of coming back and putting their stamp on this season.
Listen, I'm a Bears fan. I love running backs.
Right.
So, you know, what are you going to do? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I personally I've never seen it with Rojo yet. So I'm not saying he can't do that. And certainly he's fought some injuries, you know, some concussion stuff. I don't know that I understand the usage with him and Swift on the field at the same time. I haven't seen the vision for that yet of what exactly that was. I mean, you talked about that earlier. Hey, he had that, Caleb had that outlet for Swift and he had Roshan in front of him. And my mind went like, yeah, but why?
Yeah.
Why are there 2 running backs off to the side? And why is Roshan coming in as like an offset eye fullback? Like, are the Bears problems because they cut Kari Blasingame and they haven't won a game since?
I was going to say that they haven't won a game since they got rid of a fullback. Yeah.
You know, there's maybe something to do with some of that. Like they don't even have the personnel that they want. You know, there's lacking there too. So I feel like we have to give a cold bowl to Thomas Brown. I don't really know what this plan is offensively. It's a short week. That's a challenge for anybody, but it just seemed like he really didn't have much of a plan coming into this game. That was, maybe I got to go back and look at it, but man, that nothing felt planned out there. Like I mean, there's nothing to fall back on here. And then he gets into a situation where you do need to have him do some critical thinking on how to use your timeouts and how you're going to play in game and how you're going to, and he didn't do that very well either. So I just think that he deserves the shout out here. And, you know, as much as we have tried to be kind about his audition to say, you know, not rule it out instantly as like, well, now he's definitely not getting the job. I mean, I think that there's pretty good evidence that he needs a little more seasoning before he's ready to take on a head coaching job.
Yeah, he's not ready. I mean, he'll get an interview because he's in-house. He's the interim. It's what you kind of do there. He'll get an interview to go through the process, which would be good for him in his young career. And then I think he will try and latch on somewhere as an offensive coordinator, you know, based on what he's done here. Because early returns as an OC, pretty good. Since taking over as head coach, there's been a step down. So I think someone may kind of give him a chance, or maybe he ends up back in LA with McVay, and he's his OC, and he's kind of there back again, learning under him for another year or two. And we kind of saw it with Matt Nagy. He went back to KC, and now I would not be surprised if Matt Nagy's back on the coaching circuit this offseason. So, you know, that's what happens with these guys. They kind of go back where they're familiar. He'll have a chance somewhere next year coaching with someone for sure.
All right. So just right. I had Torrey Taylor. I don't know that I have another name. Do you have anybody that you'd like to highlight as meeting your expectations for this game?
For this game, no. But I'm going to talk about a little bit Rome Odunze as a rookie. Ups and downs this rookie season. There was someone that I said a tweet and someone took a shot at Rome saying Rome Odunze is a bust. You know, I don't normally like to highlight the trollish tweets, but this isn't the first time I saw someone really criticize Rome pretty hardcore here, but we're talking 500 or 700 yards as a rookie. I'm not sure where he's at now. 50 catches, you know, that's not bad for a rookie. I mean, rookie numbers as receiver, they're all over the place, and we've seen plenty throughout the years where they weren't even that good. So Rome's got some rookie issues to work through here. I'm not sure he's being used the best way in this offense. I'm not sure. Ask him to kind of think too much, which I know kind of sounds as a negative. But as a rookie, you just want to play, right? Put him in a situation where he can just play. We saw the play early in the game where it looked like he was trying to set down and Caleb kind of sailed it. So it looks like Caleb overthrew him. But then when they showed the replay, you're like, okay, Rome is kind of, slowing up his move. It looks like he's kind of settled down. So it looks like he's kind of turning towards Caleb, but not all the way. So there's some confusion there. You don't want to see that at this point in the season, but it's there, not just with Rome, but also with Keenan, with sometimes with DJ. It's there. Rookies make mistakes, but overall, I think Rome's having a year like I kind of hoped. I think he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, we used to just have a rule where you just don't judge rookies, right? Like, he's a top 10 pick, so you're going to have a certain amount of expectations on him, but you're looking around the league at the, some of these other guys, they're flashing or they're also having those ups and downs, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. also having an up and down year, right? So it is what it is. I think that's a really good call out there. And I love Rome, so
that's your guy. Yeah.
I don't want to just come off as defensive, but yeah, I mean, I don't know that anybody's role has made a ton of sense in this offense this year. That didn't match what we thought the Bears were going to do coming into the year. Maybe that's just on us, but all those guys got fired. So I feel like I don't feel like we were wrong. I feel like these guys maybe misevaluated their talent on staff and didn't really understand how to use them, which seems bizarre, but there's a reason why Shane Waldron and I watched from the same vantage point tonight. So, all right, that's what I have. Do you have any other notes that you want to cover on this terrible game before
it was just
we
such
end
a bad game? I mean, there really, I mean, like I said, there's no silver linings. Even on our day after show, we try and be balanced if we can. If this would have been recorded on our normal day after show, there'd be nothing for us, I don't think, to even be positive about. It was just a terrible game, 6-3. Just a rough outing from the offense. The defense flashed, but was it the defense being good or was it the Seattle offense just not being very good? I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, Geno Smith was pretty bad tonight, so you want to say, oh, it's the Bears playing great defense, but part of it's the weather, part of it's Seattle being discombobulated themselves. So just a terrible game.
Thursday football could be weird and sloppy. Yes. Certainly sloppy tackling early. There's all that. I have a note of, you come out in the third quarter, you get to a 3rd and 2 and you run it for 1 yard and then you punt. That's on Thomas Brown. You got to put the ball in Caleb's hands. And
was that the DeAndre Swift one where he kind of took it into the line and just kind of hit a brick wall?
I think that was Roshan.
Okay.
That's pretty weak, right? Like you got to come out and play, but the number of run, pass, punt stuff. It's like that's 1990s football. Like what are we doing here? And then I did have a note about the DK Metcalf and Tyreek Stevenson altercation that resulted in 2 penalties, but it was really only 1 penalty.
That was a weird.
And then it wasn't a penalty that was counted towards ejection. I don't understand what happened there because clearly something was said, whatever, one way or the other, but DK Metcalf was the player that punched and headbutted and put a finger in the face mask, and Tyreek didn't do anything back, right? He was smart. So, so DK drew 2 flags, which I don't know that I've ever seen before. And then, but they only took him back 15 yards. So one, why don't they take him back 30? For a double, it's the same guy.
Well, because it's not a play. It's not like you held and another guy held, or you held twice. This is after the whistle.
Yeah.
You get flagged for the headbutt, then you get flagged again for the the point or the jab into the face mask.
I think he got flagged for the punch, and then he got flagged for the headbutt.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, he got flagged twice, but it only counts as going back once, and that's probably in the rule book. I'm not saying they applied it wrong, but then they said this doesn't count towards ejection, and I thought, bull, like what? Why
They
wouldn't
changed
it?
right? It was a
Yeah, well, at first it was unsportsmanlike, and then they changed or whatever, and then they changed it to personal
unnecessary.
foul or like I don't know. That was weird.
Stupid.
Why wouldn't it count towards ejection? And he got 2 of them. Kick him out. Like that didn't make any sense. Not that DK Metcalf had anything to do with the outcome of this game, but that was weird. I didn't like that. That was just sometimes I just don't understand most of the time I understand the rules. Like I've been watching football so long. Okay, I get it. I didn't understand that application. That didn't make sense. Why would they change that? It's almost like they're like, hey, we don't want to kick this guy out. So let's flip that around, right? No, get that guy out of here.
Yeah.
Get that noise out of here. And then I see people saying Tyreek Stevenson talks too much trash for a guy that's not very good, and he needs to. I thought, no. He did right.
Yeah.
He didn't retaliate. He didn't get a penalty. He drew the penalty on DK Metcalf. CJ Gardner-Johnson is notorious as a talker, and he drew a punch from Mims,
Javon
right?
Mims, yeah.
Wims, not Mims. And I was ready to cut Wims after that game because of how dumb that was, right? I don't mind that. The corners talk. They're cocky, right? And if he's getting under the skin of the receiver and he's causing something like that, great. That's fine. Don't come out on, don't high horse me and say he's not good enough to talk trash. Sometimes you got to. Sometimes you got to when you're struggling. And if that's how you're helping your team, great. So I'm all for Tyreek talking trash and drawing flags. I should have given him a hot bowl.
You should have
Now
given
that I think about it.
Yeah. So the thing with Tyreek is he had a rough rookie year, right? But he got better as the year went on. Right. This year he's been pretty rough most of the year. So I don't know what's going on there. If just there's film on him now, or if teams are playing him differently, they're running different routes at him. But something's going on here. There's some talent there. I mean, he's a second-round draft pick. When just the Bears had him rated high, he was talked about a lot in that draft class. If he can channel whatever is going on in the field and get better, that cocky attitude, he annoys the hell out of opposing offense. This ain't the first time we've seen him kind of get,
right.
really annoyed. We saw with the Lions, him and Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
That was kind of stemmed from a dirty, cheap play even on the sideline.
Right.
But that's Tyreek. I mean, like if he can channel, like you said, if he can, like tonight, he was a prick, but he didn't retaliate. He got Metcalf to make the stupid play. So, man, I hope Tyreek can figure it out because you need those guys on your defense that kind of talk trash. That Bears kind of missed it with Brisker. Brisker was a talker, right? And he would he would annoy other opposing offenses. So, you need those guys, especially on the defensive side of things. You need those guys that kind of go out there and kind of just talk trash and stir things up because, as much as some fans look at it and we don't like that gets the players going sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's a weird purity test on so much of this stuff with Bears fans, and it really is bothering me this year more than other years. But this idea, like, you can only talk trash if you're good, like if you're winning, and it's like I don't care. Like these guys they're playing hard. He drew a flag, he wasn't putting his team at risk. I don't have an issue with that. So justice for Tyreek. That's my closing message. So, all right, we'll close it out here, and we will not be back on Monday. I have no idea when the next podcast is going to run. I think Bill might try to do something early in the week.
Yeah,
and
Bill's going to try and drop something Monday, maybe. I think Taylor Dow may do something over the weekend as well. She has a couple things lined up. She just got back from Vegas, so I think she's trying to get something lined up here, but we're not going to be completely dark for the holidays. We'll have some shows popping up here in the next few days.
We as a channel will not. As a show will.
Yes.
We are not going to come back until after the Packers finale game.
Oh, that's going to be
where
rough.
I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure we're just going to have a blast on that one. And then maybe we'll pivot and do like end of season category awards. right? As opposed, if the game is just a disaster, we'll do it more of like all season, or maybe we'll do a little bit of that either way. Give our trench tribute of the year away out and all that kind of stuff. So that's the show. Maybe we'll stick around for just a couple minutes with the YouTube crowd. But for you guys listening on the podcast, thank you for listening. I'm sorry this year has sucked, and bear down. I feel like partly responsible for this team sucking so much. Not
You
because
do?
I did anything, but just because I had hope, and I feel like maybe somebody else heard me say that. And so then they're like, well, these guys seem to be kind of optimistic. And now 10-game losing streak.
There was a lot of optimism about this team. Hard Knocks kind of had to play in a little bit, but the one concern that was kind of universal around amongst all traditional and non-traditional media members was the O-line seemed a little sketchy. We're a little worried about the O-line, and
D-line for sure.
the D-line had some pieces there, but they're still missing a guy. So the concerns that most of us had really showed up, and the positivity that we all thought we were going to see just didn't. It sucked.
I think you meant prickly.
I like pickly. I'm gonna go have some.
But I think this team needs to be pickled.
Yeah.
I think that works too.
Scrolling up, we got it. What do you got here?
Well, it's hard to build chemistry when you're being murdered in the backfield more often than not. I mean, yeah, I agree. I feel like the offensive line hasn't been able to build any chemistry, right? Like that's the first unit that needs to build more chemistry, and I can't believe that there was no mention of who was actually on the offensive line.
Yeah.
And that just seems like announcer malpractice. Like you're not even gonna talk about the fact that there's only one guy that was originally slated to be a starter out there right now. Like that feels like that's at least worth a mention because it's a national game. A lot of people don't watch. A lot of people don't know who Matt Pryor is.
Yeah.
Why if you root for the Seahawks, like why would you know who Matt Pryor? You know who Jake Curran is, right? Didn't he?
He was a former Seahawk. Yeah.
He was on the Seahawks, right? And they're probably like, hey, look at that guy. I remember him. But
we cut him last year. Look at him. Now he's starting for the Bears.
Well, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just that feels like it's at least worth providing that context as opposed to going in multiple times about it, oh, hey, this is quarterback's fault. Well, yeah. I don't know, man.
Andrew Whitworth is on the post-game set, so I would hope he would have had something to say about it. I didn't get a chance to watch, so hopefully someone is out there listening will know one way or the other, but he's usually pretty good with having the O-lines back because that's of course his former O-lineman. So
yeah, that helps. What else you got?
Let's see what we got here. Something up higher I saw. Fire polls, Merry Christmas. JB, where are you at? You on the keep polls or fire polls?
I just want Ben Johnson.
Yes.
So if you're back channeling a conversation with Ben Johnson's agents, which don't tell me that doesn't happen.
It happened, yeah.
And they're coming back to you and if they're coming back to you being Kevin Warren, and they're saying like, look, Ben's very interested, but he really wants to bring his own guy. I'd show him the door. Like not even a question.
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate that he keeps making these moves on the offensive line that just don't see the field. He signed Lucas Patrick. Lucas Patrick gets hurt in the preseason. He's got a club, can't snap. Sam Musford has to play. Lucas Patrick can't get healthy. 2 years of that crap, right? Signs Nate Davis, who put on pretty good film, pretty decent film. He ignores everything about the personality stuff, which that was dumb, but ignores all the personality stuff and goes ahead and signs him. Nate Davis doesn't want to play football once he starts getting that check cash, right? Trades for Ryan Bates. Ryan Bates can't stay healthy, can't get on the field. That was his plan at center, right? I don't think he wanted to count on Tevin. He moved Tevin to guard and then flipped him over to the other guard. Like he kind of treated Tevin like he wasn't part of the plan. And in a way, that was bad. And in another way, he was probably right because Tevin has had a lot of trouble staying on the field, right? So it's like he's done some things, but none of them have worked. And it's a results-based business. I think that's going to sink him. And it's ironic for a former offensive lineman that that's what's going to happen. But, again, it's a results-based business. This is, he needed to show this working a little bit this year, and it just didn't.
Yeah, he has to own the record just as much as Flus owned the record. He has to own part of it too, because these are his guys. He brought this, he put this trenches together. And that's really the downfall of everything here. Just and he was pretty on board with the Shane Waldron hire, as was the fans, but the fans didn't get a chance to sit down and talk to Shane Waldron. That wasn't something that we were privy to. So whatever happened in that interview, Poles really was sold on Waldron. That was his guy. You kind of see it when they had that press conference, when they had to talk about it, how distraught Poles was, when the question was brought up about Waldron. Because I think he realized that it was a colossal mistake on his part bringing him in, because that just didn't work. I mean, that was just a mess. And then, of course, now we have, Pete Carroll, the ex-Seattle head coach, putting his name out there through the media that he would love to coach the Bears next year. So,
73 years old.
Yeah.
Now, Pete Carroll's a young guy at heart.
Yes.
And I think that's fantastic. That's not the guy. That's not the guy.
That's not the. I look at him much like I look at Mike Vrabel. Yes, there's a place for Pete Carroll to coach next year, but I don't think it's with the Bears, because this situation they're in with Caleb going into year 2, you've got to get a guy that can maximize that, and that the best way to do that is with an offensive guy. And let Pete Carroll go somewhere and coach a team that has an established offense identity already.
Chris says that she agrees that she didn't have any hope for this season, but then listened to us and Bill and started to come around. And I don't think that the talent evaluation of what was on paper, I was at the Hall of Fame game and they hand out those giant rosters, like the giant roster board to the, to the media so that you have all the numbers and stuff, and found it in my car. We were packing stuff up for Christmas and driving and stuff. And I was like, oh, hey. And so you see all these names and where they're at the depth chart, all these offensive linemen that are like way down on the depth chart. They like moved up and they had snaps, right? I mean, we were talking about it the other day. Bill Murray was playing some pretty good football, and then he got hurt and he's out for the year, right? What happens if Bill Murray establishes himself as like a decent guard option, and now all of a sudden you have a guy in there that's playing guard that you kind of are excited about, and Matt Pryor, maybe he can take over those tackle snaps when are needed instead of playing guard, because you like Bill Murray and you give him the, so there's just like all these things that happen that you can't know that in August. And so that sucks, but you have to own the end result, right? Like, so it's this weird thing. I just kind of keep coming back to that. Like when we looked at it, we said, okay, Nate Davis, yeah, that was a bad year. We'll put it behind us. And hope that Tevin Jenkins can give you 13, 14 starts. And Ryan Bates, like, man, he sure likes Ryan Bates. Well, let's see what he's got. And we like Braxton, and Darnell's going to take a step, and yeah, we'll be fine. It's never happened. They never got on the field together. Not one play. So I don't know that we were wrong. But it didn't happen. I mean, we were clearly wrong in our prediction, but nothing happened like it was laid out in August either. So I just don't know like what you're supposed to do with that. And I don't, I'm not going to lose my job because of it, but Poles might.
Yeah, I mean, Poles, look, he has 1 year left on his deal. So he's either going to get extended or he's going to get fired, because you're not going to hire a head coach and not extend Poles if Poles is staying. But, like you said, if Ben Johnson's the guy, there's already been some dot connecting with Kevin Warren having a relationship with the Lions assistant GM Ray Agnew. So, just put it all together, and then that may make the most sense here. But yeah, the misses are stacking up for polls. Let's talk about Zach Pickens, 3rd-round draft. We talked about him last week.
Inactive.
64th overall pick. We gave him the hot bowl. I gave him the hot bowl because, oh my God, he finally got a full sack for the first time ever as your 64th overall draft pick. And then now here he is this week, inactive. He can't even suit up. They would rather dress Brian Cowart and the kid from the Packers practice squad, Ford. They'd rather dress this guy than your 3rd-round draft pick because he's just not very good. That's just again, too many misses here in the draft, too many free agency decisions that didn't work out, too many missed opportunities, like trading Velas when you had a chance. If there was really an offer on the table, like it seemed like, like, come on, what are we doing here? If someone offers you something for your 6th receiver / 4th tailback, someone's going to give you a real draft pick for that. I don't care how excited you are watching him in preseason rack up 9 yards a carry. Someone's offering you a real draft pick for a guy that's on the bottom of your roster. And he says, no, that's my guy. Getting emotional over Adrian Colbert, which, look, that was a touching moment in Hard Knocks, but, I mean, then he's back. Now he's back on the active roster. Is he back on the active roster because he's needed? Or is he back on the active roster because that's his guy? We saw him bring back Travis Bell a couple weeks ago as on the practice squad because that was his guy. Is he falling in love with these fringe players too much and just not able to kind of be cutthroat like you want out of a GM? There's a balance, but yeah, I'm kind of out on polls.
Sees himself, right?
Yeah.
Guy that was good enough. I mean, listen, I have all the respect in the world for anybody that can play Division I college football and get a cup of coffee in the NFL. Like, I mean, that I would have loved to have had that athletic career, right? But you do wonder if that enters his mindset sometimes, where sees himself in some of those fringe players and maybe gets a little bit too locked in on that. Bill Zimmerman's talked a lot about there's some red chips here. Those are good. You need those, but where are the blue chips? And you're hoping some of those guys turn into blue chips, but right now they're not there. And at the end of the day, that's what carries a lot of these really good teams is these elite players that make plays. And you don't have that right now. You got some red chips. You're not going to win a lot of games doing that either. And you have, what's the opposite of a red chip? What's the opposite of like blue chip, red chip? Like what's it go down to? Just like
cow chip, maybe?
Cow chip. Perfect. That's what I was looking for. That's your coaching staff that you've picked.
Yeah.
Like those are they've got to be among the worst coaching in the league. I mean, I haven't thought about every single coaching staff or anything, but I mean, it's some of the worst coaching week in, week out. It sucks.
Coaching matters.
Coaching is a coaching league. So get that right. You've got the quarterback that everybody agrees has all the talent in the world. Mold them. Put those two together. That's why it's got to be an offensive coach. It's got to be a guy that you're going to pair with him for the rest of Caleb's rookie contract and hopefully far beyond. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's get to the offseason. Sim 2 offseason.
I can't wait.
Get this hire figured out, and then we can start going, right? And the people that are like, did we just saw it this week? Dan Orlovsky. Well, I would look elsewhere besides Ben Johnson because Goff plays on time, and that's not. Listen, the whole point of an offensive mind is that he can take the pieces that he has and work with it. Like that's the point. It's not this works because Jared Goff makes it work. Get the out of here, yeah. Dan Orlovsky. That Jared Goff was left for dead, right? Like that he's making it work with Jared Goff. Awesome for Jared Goff and a talented player. Can't move, but like has arm talent. But this isn't some coveted guy that people were clamoring. Oh man, the Lions got Goff. Man, no, he was a throw-in. The Rams cast him off. Sean McVay said, this guy's not good enough for me to win a Super Bowl with. And he's reaching new levels with Ben Johnson. That doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
He's finding ways to figure this out. So if that happens, you're going to see renewed optimism. I mean, I know I was probably the first person to bring him up last year, middle of the season. I was talking Ben Johnson. I get it. I'm a broken record, but just give me this one. Give me the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks until they make a hire. And if it is Ben Johnson, I'll be on the track. And if it isn't, I'm going to be crying because I just don't see another option. I think this is where it's at. Like he's the guy.
It's gotta be. Yeah, it's gotta be. This has to be it. I'm not sure how much more I have left in me if they screw this up.
I mean, it's just going to be watching. If they hire a guy like Mike Vrabel, it's not going to happen. But if they hired a guy like Mike Vrabel, he's just going to wither. It's just going to happen again. He'll be another cycle.
Fisher 2.0. He'll latch on somewhere, have his teams playing tough, gritty football. Just good enough, a few 8-8s here, a few 8-8s there. Maybe make a playoff here, then he'll fade away.
Yep. Well, that was fun.
It's late.
11:30. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We'll see you after the Packers game. Have a happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.